You know, some people, a lot of people on the planet don't know where they're going to sleep tonight or if they're going to eat today. Their wants are really more basic than someone who's got all the money in the world to spend. But each person has their own texture of desires, wantings, liking, their own thoughts woven around it, their own style of life, and their own thinking about what they like, what they have, what they got, and how happy they are, content they are, or what they're going to get next. And this is all development of Venus, which each of these planets, the sun's shining out. As a soul, the sun just shines out to everyone, but as the ego, what happens is the sunlight comes out and then it hits Mercury, and Mercury steals some sunlight. It blocks some of the sunlight. So Mercury steals the light of the sun. The mind gets empowered by the sun. So I think my thoughts are so powerful. I'm important. My thinking is important. Venus does the same thing. I want this. This is important. The sunlight takes some of the sunlight, and the sunlight absorbs the sunlight. I want it. This is what I want. It's important. What I have is more important than anything else. I gotta have that. Like the sun empowers, but the ego empowers the ego-driven emotions. The emotions driving the ego. It's a very powerful force for being alive and pulling us into various scenarios. But there's not peace in those scenarios. The scenarios come when the Venus is grateful for the light of the sun and is not empowered by it, but shines, lets the soul light of love shine through. Right? It's like it surrenders to the light rather than thinking the light's giving me and shining it on me. It's my point in the sun. It's always one half, and it's always facing the sun, like every planet. And every planet takes a bit of sunlight and doesn't let it go further. It takes this, I'm taking this, and there's a shadow behind it. So our emotions, our desires, in most of the spiritual traditions, there's a fight to control the mind, and there's disciplines to control the mind, or to slow it down, or to calm it so you can be quiet and not think. And there's equally as many to control the desires, to limit desires, to get to peace, to get to stillness, to be content, to meditating and not want anything. These are the two main spiritual disciplines in life. Okay, how do you stay? Yoga is how to keep in union with God. So not empowered by the ego, but how do you work to keep the mind thinking of God? How do you work to keep the emotions content with devotion or faith or belief or inner feelings, inner not attachments, to sharing, to letting go of things? Just trying to describe that can take could take a day. So, but this is the puzzles of Venus. You're going to see the things you like that are attached. You're going to see the Venus. We're going to watch it as these wants, as Venus comes up and touches planets or touches areas of the chart, it's going to put its choices or put what it wants. It's going to put its stamp or its desires on that planet. It's going to put the desires are going to evolve there. So you have your Venus in your natal chart. That's the way your basic attitude of what basic contentment is, or what basic desires are, how it basically works for you. But even though you have that basic way of processing, inside in your progressions, it's evolving. It's going to change signs. It's going to change attitudes. It's going to go through pentans. It's going to go through subpentans. It's going to go through hexagrams. It's going to make aspects. It's going to go through so many things. It's going to go through a section of one's chart. It's going to cross an angle of one's horoscope. And the values and the desires of the wants are going to be empowering that point. It's going to be putting that energy into that point in the chart, and you're going to be experiencing it. So, yeah, so just back up a minute here. You can see on this little chart, you see the blue line here is the Venus going, in this case, goes forward, retrograde, direct, forward again. So like Mercury, we have a similar puzzles of the retrograde. I'm going to go better explain that a little bit now. So, but I mean, Venus is going to go through a house, in 20, 30 years. Maybe it could be there in the house for your lifetime, or it could be a house for 60 years. It just depends what part of the cycles you're born on, where you are in it. And so once you have your pattern, you see it, it's pretty strong. It really puts it in a few certain areas. Okay, so some people will go through their life and Mercury, Venus will start on one side and just go straight all their life, never goes retrograde. But some people get tied up in various stages of the retrograde cycle, and that is their life lesson. So someone who is just going straight, Venus will go through a number of signs. It'll go through faster changes through the houses, through the signs, through the rulerships, and it'll make more different aspects. So these are all the stepping stones or this trigger points that we'll see with the progressions going on, and things will happen in our life through that. And depending on whether you're just trying to get things or how far your consciousness has evolved, the Venus will play itself out. So we have the same thing. Basically, we have the starting point, which is the invisible point. That's the same point where Venus would go direct, stationary direct. That degree is kind of the starting point. So whatever happens emotionally, or whatever you desire or wanting, could be wanting the relationship, you could be wanting to get out of a relationship, you could be wanting to have this or that, or wanting to be beautiful, or wanting to, or feeling ugly. It could be so many things that come in, but you'll build up a theme for this whole period until it goes retrograde. And this, okay, so then when it goes retrograde, it'll go retrograde, it'll go back, and you're going back over that theme again. You're going back over re-evaluating what you had before. And then it slows down again, then it'll go direct. And then when it goes direct, it's going forward, starting to go direct. But it really, when it goes direct, it's not really free of the old cycle until it gets to the stationary retrograde point and goes beyond that. Then then your values are evolving into new territory. Okay. So the basic Venus retrograde is about 43 years. It can be a couple of years shorter, a couple of years longer. It's basically 43 years from from being stationary retrograde to being stationary direct. 43 years. So if Venus goes to retrograde in your life, in the next 43 years, it's in retrograde. You're a lot older when it goes direct again. So what beauty is to you at the beginning is not what it's going to be to you at the end. It's going to evolve no matter how we go, what we want, what we have, what we get, what we don't get. All our envies, our jealousies, our wanting things, what we don't have, our bitterness, these are all tied into Venus. And those play out as battles in our life. But so basically, it's a 43-year period from the retrograde to the direct of Venus. From the starting point, which is the same point where it went direct, looking earlier in the ephemeris, or looking earlier to find when it hits that degree before the goes retrograde, that's 30 years from that starting point to the retrograde point. So 30 years before Venus goes retrograde, that's setting the themes on what's going to have to be gone back over and reflected on and reevaluated over the 43 years of Mercury being retrograde, Venus being retrograde. That's 73 years. And that starts going forward, and you can start being more direct about it. But if you start at the beginning, you're not going to get back at this finishing point. It's more than a lifetime. So, yeah, it's another 30 years to get from the stationary direct back to this completion point. So 30 years, 43 years, 30 years. Whew. There's a lifetime. The basic mechanics of when we're looking at the stationary retrograde or stationary direct points, it's going to be 15 years within the same degree at this point. 15 years in the turning point from going direct to retrograde. So really, it's 8 years from going direct to being exactly retrograde, and then 8 years, or 7, 8 years going from retrograde to just getting out of that 1 degree in that exactness. Now, if that 1 degree happens to be conjuncting Pluto or squaring Pluto, oh my goodness, you're going to feel it. If it's conjuncting Jupiter, oh my goodness, you're going to indulge it. It's conjuncting the sun, it's going to empower it. So that 15 years in a degree is a long time. And to maintain that aspect and to see when any aspect that happens, to see when it's enough just to deal with the 15 degrees to when it goes stationary retrograde or when it goes direct. When you get past that midway point, at least you're past the midway point. But still, you're at the eye of the hurricane, there's still the other half to get through in this change of values. Well, some people keep the same values. Some people have the same values that just steadily evolve sign by sign across a lifetime. They don't change, but if your values are going to change, it's like 15 years to turn it around and backwards for 43, 15 years to turn around again. These are really different styles of, one's reevaluating, each one's reevaluating. The first time going back, you're reevaluating what went before. When it goes again, you're reevaluating what went before and what went before and trying to get it right this time to go direct on. Not that when it's going retrograde it's wrong, it's just we start with gross values and we evolve. Some people seem to stick to the same old values all their lifetime. You know, whether it's beer and chips or a steak or whether it's different things. It could be music. There's so many things we like and we evolve that we refine, and we consider that I'm okay as long as I have this. Not like whether we have it or whether we lost it. We have money. We don't have money. All of these things. It's tied to your attitude to money, to what you have, to what you know. How are you going to use it? This is all Venus. So these phases become very, especially when you're in them, you're going to study them for 15 years. You'll be working on it for 15 years. You can't just say, oh, it's just this. It's a long-term phase that deals with your outer ego and your outer circumstance, all the gross sides of the world, and also the refined sides of the world. It's going to be refinement or not. Which are you attached to? How beautiful you are, how ugly you are, how rich, how poor, how talented, how untalented. And everybody has talents. Not everybody recognizes them or values them. And don't forget, Venus, your Venus can be above or below the horizon, acting at your wanting out how you want to basically find things is going to be with that Venus is in your natal chart. So you see the Venus in your natal chart, then it's going to act out through the progressions. It's going to accumulate things through the progressions. And go through, and once you accumulate things, it's hard to let go. Once you have to let go, it's hard to get over it. So, okay, so here we go. So we have so we have just the starting point and the completion point. So this is just taking an example of someone with Venus just at the beginning, just a Venus going direct. That's going to go direct through their life for a certain amount. They go through 30 years or something. And then in their 30 or 40, in their 30s, sometime Venus it slows down on Venus. After they pass with Saturn, return, Venus goes along. And it turns retrograde, and you don't want the same things after your mid-30s that you wanted when you're 20. You're going, well, I came from there. My folks are to blame for this. I came out of that world. I'm not living like that now. Or how come this is why it's not working? Or this is why it's working this way. You're reflecting on what you wanted before. So there'll be this big turning point in the chart when it hits that starting point. There'll be the stationary retrograde point, but really the 15 years where the turnaround point is.